Hello everybody, welcome back to Wolfie Access. Today we're going to do a first time Minecraft event interview type of thing where I'm going to interview someone in the Minecraft event scene and get their thoughts on a whole bunch of things related to Minecraft events and maybe even beyond that. This is the first time trying this, so disclaimer, hide sheds that things will be a little bit silly or scuffed, but first time joined by Sandwich Lord.
I love Wolfie Mogomel.
He loves
Everyone needs to
Wolfie
comment that
Mogomel.
right now.
Let's go! Everybody, if you don't type I love Wolfie Bogomel, you are getting blacklisted from my channel. Sorry, I hate to break it to you.
You see all the Redditors down there.
Also, we are fishing in-game because I want some activity on the screen whilst this is going on. And this is the best format that was easily accessible for me. Also, I'll flash the questions on screen real quick. Here you go, viewers. These are the questions we're going to be asking. All right. Oh, God. Okay, we're good. All right. Well, Sandwich, how are you doing? To tell the viewers, because I already know because you told me, but
I'm fishing. I'm trying to boost my pearl chances when I get some pristine pearls. I actually woke up like an hour ago, which means that my morning consists of midday till 5 p.m. and then my afternoon is the rest of the day. So
nice.
I'm feeling great.
Okay.
I think I'm ready.
Fantastic. Well, I mean, I sent you the questions as well to, give you some chance to prepare so you know what's coming.
Oh, yeah.
So I guess we can start at the top. Sandwich Lord, what is your relation to Minecraft events?
So, for me, I think in general they're a pretty large part of my personality in terms of what I do in the space at least. A lot of people will look at me and go, "Oh, he's an event player," and that's like chill. Like I think if I would have wanted to be labeled as something, I'd want to be labeled as, "Oh, it's the guy that daily streams," rather than, "Oh, he's the event player." But like I love Minecraft events and I play them like a lot. I play in like I guess I've played in the big 5 or the big 4 like at least once every single one. So I mean I feel like at this point it's kind of impossible to stray away from that label, and you know what, I'm okay with that.
Because
I like Minecraft events. I don't think I would stop playing them unless they fizzled out completely. So
yeah, no.
You could say I'm an event player.
The way I view it is, to me, you are like one of the more popular representatives in smaller events as well. I feel like whenever I discover a like new event or something small or hear about something related to event discussion that I'm less familiar with, it either comes from you or from like Toph or Kalen. And I feel like out of those three, obviously you are the most known. So I feel like it's interesting to kind of see like how you fit in terms of the puzzle piece, within Minecraft events. It's kind of the representation across the board. Feels like you're one of the best candidates for that, which I think is just a very interesting like slot to fill, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think the way I find events, like in terms of the way I discover them as well, is very much from my friends. So, for example, the reason I invested early stonks into Biome Battle was because Jack told me, "Hey, this is a cool event, by the way," and I was like, "Okay." So I started playing. It's the reason I played I played a Chamber Trials once. That was because Jack told me it was alright. So I was like, okay, I'll play that. I'll see how it is, and it was like fun. But like a lot of these smaller events is just from like word of mouth from my friends. Like it's very rare that I will look at like a smaller event and go by myself and say, hey, I want to join this, if that makes any sense.
No, that's very valid. I'm in that same boat. I saw. I mean, you mentioned Chamber Trials. I saw like Chamber Trials because I think like 5UP or someone like that was like in it, and I was like, oh, interesting. Because like I would never want to like dive into an event myself, mainly because maybe it's like a slight ego thing. I am Wolfie Bogo Male. I feel like that's kind of a big leap. It's like if like The Weeknd featured on like a new artist's like album first time, like that would be kind of crazy. So I'm like, I'm not that I'm The Weeknd, but I'm just saying like
it's just nerve-wracking, right? Because it's like that's how I felt when I started playing in my first Mania. That's how I felt. I felt very much like a fish out of water.
Yeah,
in
kinda,
terms of like
yeah.
where I was, because I was like the largest creator by a significant amount, and I was
Mhm.
not used to that at all. Because I think
Right.
the event I played before that was Block Wars 2, and I was one of the smallest at the time. So it was like, to me, that didn't really feel like it felt weird. So it's just like complete polar opposite of what I was used to.
No, I agree. I think that's to me something that's like so tough when it comes to, and even Mania is something that, people ask about. It's like these events, I'm sure, have something to them that deserves extra attention, but considering the amount of involvement I personally already have, and I assume you have that to an extent as well, we already have 3, 4 events we actively play in. Adding another one extra to it, and then kind of make it, or putting the attention on yourself because you are the one of the biggest people that are going to be in this, or you're going to be the one that like helps popularize this, might be a lot to handle at the same time. And maybe
Yeah,
in terms of like, what's it called, like burnout, maybe a little bit, maybe that's a little bit too far, but like in terms of having too many events going on at once, if you have to
just
pick,
kind of the pressure. You
yeah.
know what I mean? Because it was like recently I had an example being Biome Battle 1. I was definitely probably 80% of of the community's first look at the event,
Mhm.
because I was one of like the main event players to play it like in the first event before any of the other like kind of regular event players found it. So I was kind of the community's like first grasp on what this is,
Yeah, which
which was definitely interesting.
I feel like, kind of as like a final thing, in terms of your relation to Minecraft events, I feel like another kind of proof, that leads to why I think you are like one of the main representatives in these smaller events is the viewership you sometimes pull in these smaller events. Like these events
Yeah.
without you might pull a few hundred, and you solo pull like 300-400 in something like I don't know the specific ones, but maybe like a Mania or something, right? Like
I
something
think it's just
crazy.
because I'm like a safe POV. I'm kind of like Shane. Like if you put Shane in a small event, he'll probably experience kind of a similar thing,
Sure.
where it's like a lot of people will just go, "Oh, Shane's an event player I know. Therefore, if I'm watching a new event, I'm gonna watch this POV to play it safe because it's like, oh, I just know like this person. Therefore, I know what vibe I'm gonna expect from this team. So it's not gonna feel off in any way, and I'm guaranteed to have a fun viewing experience."
Hmm.
So I felt like a lot of people saw that with me in like Biome Battle. A lot of people saw it like with me in like the first Mania I played. Because I think it was crazy. The first Mania that I played, I actually it was the first Mania I played was the highest average view account I've ever had playing a Mania, which
That's
is
crazy.
interesting. I had like I think I peaked at 400.
Oh my
Which
god.
for the time,
That's a lot.
early Mania, that's kind of crazy.
That's
I think
a lot.
like, and the second most viewed like stream was like probably like I think it was like it had to be like something like 50 or 60 at most maybe. So it was just like I was kind of the stream for that event, which was a little scary.
Mm-hmm.
But
No, that is. I can understand like that like increase in viewership and how that feels, because that reminds me of Block Wars Rookies 1, where I was teamed with like Joe Bart, and everyone was like, "Holy moly, Wolfie's on the team with Joe Bartolozzi. I'm gonna watch him." And I had like 400. I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, sounds good,
that's
man."
awesome.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. Another thing that I wanted to bring up in terms of viewership, as like the actual last part, right, is I feel like one thing that to me feels like how things work in terms of like, let's say you play in an event and you get a bunch of viewers, is mostly also because like people might be aware of an event, but like you said, like you don't really have a POV they gravitate towards, and because you are like a known person, not only obviously do people suddenly have a POV that they're familiar with that they might want to play or watch, sorry, but also you just have a larger audience. If you are in a team and you press the like on the team, Twitter might go, "Wait a minute, you're a streamer that you follow on Twitter. They like this post. Now
Yeah.
you're gonna see it." And suddenly you're because you're so closely related to events, someone might be like, "Oh, Sandwich World's playing in this event. I've never heard of it. Let me give it a try." Like something like that.
Rookies 3 was a huge example of that.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think that was that was a crazy stream for me actually. In terms of like just like average viewership, I was not expecting it as well because Rookies was overlapping with another event.
Yeah,
So
the
it was like,
Technoblade one. Yeah.
yeah. So I was assuming I was gonna have like maybe like 300 average maybe, but I think I had like 450, 500.
Holy
So
moly! I
I
was
think my
gonna
average
ask what
was
number it
five.
was. That's
I think it was
crazy.
540 was my average, and my peak was like almost 700.
That's
So it was
well,
like-
yeah. Okay, you were in the finale, so that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy though. That's insane. All right. Well, I guess the next question, I'll skip one because it's a bit more related for now. Um, would you say that events are like stressful to you? Like, do you like get that involved into events that it like could affect you sometimes?
Oh, absolutely. I think the thing is that a lot of it is tied towards how much you care about your individual performance, and also just where you stand in terms of like how good you are in a Minecraft event. I don't know if you saw the best Minecraft event players of 2024 Reddit post where it's like huge statistics sheet, and I think I was fifth. I think I was like it was like Kel, Toph, Kalen, Fine, and then me, and it's like, oh, I have an expectation to live up to. Therefore, if I don't meet that expectation, it's gonna be stressful because then I have the fear that people are gonna look at me a different way and be like, "Oh, he kind of sucks now." Which, to be fair, like if someone tells me I suck, it's like, sure, I don't really care because
Mm-hmm.
like at the end of the day, it's like just a single voice. But when it's like a huge community debate where it's like, let me look at the statistics. This event player has fallen off recently. It kind of it has the ability to tank the mental, and it's like I think if I do well in an event, I have like no stress. If I do really bad in an event, then it's like, oh, this is stressful. Which, to be honest, I don't think it helps as well that recently I've been starting to, at least in like PB, the last Mayhem I played, Block Wars, I'm starting to win every single movement game like consistently,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like if I don't do that at once, then it's gonna be really stressful because it's like if I get second, then it's like, oh well, his streak is over. GG.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I guess it's just like the community viewing and like kind of the way I interpret that to myself. And it's like the more that I do kind of bad in an event, it's like the more it hurts me as an event player in that sense.
No, I
Yes.
agree. I think that's one thing that I used to more so relate to, and nowadays not as much, is that the pressure that's put on like the top tier event players is kind of, I feel like it's not often talked about enough, like how much that can affect someone. Because not only is there this expectation to perform, right? Because you are one of the best players, you've proven in the past you can get first in games or win events or whatever. So there's this baseline expectation, this person's gonna do this well, blah blah blah, whatever, right? In the instance that you do really badly, or you have one very big fluke, it is going to be the most obvious thing for people to talk about, especially in modern day versions of events, because I feel like things have generally slowed down in terms of the bigger events, in terms of competitiveness. Like Block Wars and MCC aren't as competitive as they were, let's say, a year ago.
Yeah.
So those moments are going to be the most obvious. Someone that comes in mind for me is like Fruit. Obviously, has had a lot of very big hits in terms of MCC, but has also had a few misses, and I feel like those misses are always going to be talked about just because of like how obvious that is as like a outstanding like negative performance.
Yeah.
And I feel like that just like there's so much pressure, could be very stressful, and obviously if there's that much stress, and sometimes you could even have it in your live chat, happen at the same time where someone will be like, oh my god, he died here, ha ha ha, lol noob. You'll be like, "Ah, man,
Yeah.
I really didn't love that I had that performance, and now people are gonna like actively like talking about it. Man, that sucks. Like, I feel
It's like
like,
a common
yeah.
concept to think about, right? Because
Hmm.
it's like the if you're a good event player, that means that the good performances are the norm, meaning people are not going to talk about it unless it's
Nice.
like stellar, right?
Yep.
So your bad performances are just going to stick out more, and that's what's annoying.
I mean, it's kind
Because
of the
it's like,
same as sports, right? Like, if
yeah, it's the exact same with like worse players as well. If they have a good performance, it's going to stick out more
yeah,
because
but
it's like
in
not
their
what they
case,
normally do.
I feel like that pressure to perform isn't there because they are kind of expected to do like poorly. However,
Yeah.
I guess there is like the opposite perspective where they might go into an event with a bit more of a negative mentality because they're like, oh, I'm gonna do bad in this and this because everyone else is so much better. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like a literally polar opposite where like they're on average gonna have like a bit of a worse experience, but sometimes we'll have like a really standout highlight, and for you it might be on the opposite side where like you're gonna like like you mentioned win movement games pretty consistently, or maybe have like a really good like sky game performance or something along those lines, and
Yeah.
and then occasionally you might get like 7th in a race game because you accidentally like missed a skip, like made a grandiose like mistake, and you'll never live it down because people will be like, Sandwich Lord used to get top 3 in every race game, now he got 7th, oh my god, he's so bad. Like, you know, that's just kind of what's gonna happen. And like no, not to name names, of course, but like, let's say like a Hermit in MCC, instead of 35th in a race game, gets 25th. Only the Hermits that watch them, or like the Hermit audience, you know, will be like, oh, that's cool. Anyone else is just gonna be like, sure, right? Like, they are only gonna look at like the top 10, and they'll be like, oh, well, Shane only got 4th in Ace Race instead of 1st. Wow, he's so bad now. Like, I don't know. It's just, I feel like there is such like a entitlement in terms of the audience on the higher skill players that I'm just so curious about in terms of like how that works nowadays, because I used to be like one of the top players within at least testing and Block Wars previously, and I've just chilled out and I stopped caring to the extent where I'm 2nd frag material now, like, or even 3rd frag in PB, so I no longer have that problem to deal with, but I see it consistently, and I'm like, man, I would hate to be in that position, because you're kind of dealing with your own pressure, but then also with the audience pressure at the same time, at like the highest potential expectation, and that's just like a lot to deal with, especially if you consistently play in events, because like Shane, for example, recently was on a streak of getting 1st individual in a bunch of events, and then it came to buy-in battle, and I think he got like 3rd or something. I don't know specifically what he placed, and suddenly people were like, oh, boo-hoo, like, you didn't get 1st, blah, 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 whatever. Shane literally going into the event was like, oh, Indiv is multiplied and scoring is bad? Yeah, I'm not counting this.
Oh, Indiv is not multiplied in Buy-in Battle anymore. Okay. However, Buy-in Battle individual makes no sense, because I've said this before. Buy-in Battle is the one event I will not care about my individual because of how it works. A lot of individual points are based off doing like kind of niche objective shit in like what's it called, in a game, rather than the way to win as a team. Whereas like every other event is like, oh, if you do well as a team, you're gonna do well individually. Right. Like, it just doesn't have that line drawn. So like, I think I got 6th in Buy-in Battle, but it felt like I didn't get 6th. It felt like I got like 2nd or 3rd. So interesting. Like, I don't know. Okay. So I never really count Buy-in Battle in Div right now.
That's fair. All right. Next question, I guess. We'll go back up because I think it's interesting. Do you have a standard routine before playing an event?
So my normal routine is, this is interesting actually. I think I've talked about this sometimes on stream, but one thing I like to do before events is I do this like mostly every day anyways. I'll meditate for like 15 minutes. Okay. I also sometimes do 20 minutes of aim training, but this is only before events. And I've kind of slowed down on doing aim training a little bit, purely because like the passion's just not been there to like practice, I guess. I think my mentality for events is very much shifting to like, oh, you need to like VOD review every single strategy known to man, discuss it with your team, and then go into the event and do that exact formula. Whereas now it's like, oh yeah, I just want to go into the event, and I guess I'll try and do a little bit well. I'll obviously care about my indiv and stuff, but I won't overly practice and like come up with convoluted strategies. Like the most I'll do is watch a map like once. Like for PB15, last month, for the hyperdrive map, like all I did was I just refreshed myself by watching one POV of like the winning kind of player on each map that was going to be played once, and that was all I did in terms of VOD review for that entire event, pretty much. And it helped, but it's not something that I'm gonna do for like every game or come up with like a crazy strategy. I'm just gonna kind of VOD, if I ever do like a VOD review or whatever, I just kind of use it as like a refresher to myself, if that makes sort of sense, rather than just, right, this is gonna base my entire strategy across the entire event, and if it goes wrong, then, you know, GG.
Yeah, no, I think
I don't really do that anymore. I think I just kind of go in like, hey, I'll just like make sure my mechanics are okay and like kind of know what I'm going into, but like other than that, it's just kind of freestyle from there.
Right. That makes sense. I think VOD reviewing is definitely like also the meditating is awesome. That's like, I didn't expect that. That's like...
first event that I got first individual in Mayhem, I freaking meditated for 20 minutes beforehand.
That's crazy. Like, this guy's like a monk, like in his bedroom, just like sitting there, like cross-legged or whatever it's called.
I don't sit cross-legged. I usually just like sit on my bed and close my eyes or some shit.
Oh, you're just so that's a nap.
No, it's not. It's not like a nap. It's
Okay,
more
I
like
was gonna say this
you know
guy
when
just
you
falls
just like
asleep.
you like close your eyes and you just like kind of remove all your thoughts from your brain. You just like relax your brain.
I can't do that.
That's kind of what I do.
Unable to do. I wish I could do that. That's.
I mean, I've been doing it for a couple years now, so I'm like kind of okay at it. So.
I'm gonna get into that then.
No, that's an event statistic. I'm one of the only event players to meditate before event.
that is true. One thing that you said, yeah, VOD reviewing. I didn't actually put this on the question list because I forgot about it, but that's actually such a good thing to bring up. How do you feel about VOD reviewing? Because I personally, I'm so mixed about like how much I think VOD reviewing affects things, right? I think like you mentioned, refreshing yourself if you've never seen a map before and just looking at someone's gameplay, that's chill. I think there's levels to VOD reviewing that I'm not as cool with. Not that I think people should like feel bad for VOD reviewing or maybe like be looked down upon for VOD reviewing, but I think it is fair to kind of, you know, point out like, oh, this is like a really standout performance. Why is this such a standout performance? And then you could be like, oh, VOD reviewing. For example, with MCC Party, I know with Ace Race that was brought up a lot, which whole debate to be had about that. But yeah, how do you feel about VOD reviewing? Do you think like there is like a level to it that is acceptable? Do you think it's a problem? Do you think it's, you know, everyone should be doing it? Like, how do you feel about that?
I mean, the thing is, I think it just comes down to a few things. One is the event it is. Like, for example, there was a huge discussion about the PB VOD reviewing, which, to be fair, I have a more leniency towards that idea of VOD reviewing a lot for PB because it's a competitive event. Therefore, if you're going into PB, I think the base assumption you should have is, okay, sure, I'm going into this and like thinking, oh, I'll try have some fun, but I want to at least know what I'm getting into and at least know like how to play the games, so I'm not completely being left behind because it's such a competitive roster with competitive players, right? In that sense, you kind of have to do it because otherwise it risks like you potentially like just kind of being out of the loop. Like, it is not fun to just get destroyed in an event because everyone else has played it before and you haven't. Like,
I agree.
an event like that, it's worth VOD reviewing. Something like a Block Wars or an MCC, not as much because you have the assumption that half the roster at least is not going to VOD review. Therefore, you're on that field of the half the players, right? So if you play better than all of them, then you know that's chill.
Right.
But I think for an event like PB, you kind of have to, which is unfortunate. I mean, I've never like thought of it as a bad thing, in a sense, rather just a way to kind of improve your performance chances. It's the same thing as like going onto MCCI Sky Battle to practice your PvP game sense. It's the exact same thing, right? Like somebody who does that a lot compared to someone who doesn't do that a lot is gonna play better in MCC Sky Battle. That's just kind of how it works, right?
I mean, you would agree with me that that has been very obvious in past maybe MCC performances, most notably Twitch Rivals EU, where maybe I ended up winning 2 of the MCCI games on accident. Oopsie. So like, yeah, no, I agree with you. Like that is.
I think. Yeah. Also, I think it just comes down to it's up to the event, right? Like it got to the point where MCC was doing things like in their update video, telling people every single Tug Toss map that was going to be played in the event, which was an interesting move. I think they did it to make it fair for everyone. It's like it's a weird balance because it's like, do you show the maps, which gives people opportunity to VOD review them, so people who have more time have more advantages, which in turn hurts the people who don't have as much time. Or 2, do you leave it up to chance and just don't say the maps, so then when they appear, like whoever's good at whatever map, like if it's a map someone's good at and someone's bad at, the person who's naturally good at it is just gonna play better. But then would you consider that unfair? It's a weird line because I know a huge debate is like, I don't know how much I can say about this, but I think one thing that was discussed for at least like PB, like one thing that was thrown around was like, oh, don't show the map for like, don't show the race map for the next event. And it's like, sure, that can work, but then again, it's the hypothesis that you're gonna go into an event where somebody knows or has played this map before and somebody else hasn't, and the person who hasn't played it before immediately has a disadvantage compared to the person who has played it before. So they don't have a chance to VOD review it in time to be more up to speed with the people that have played it before, if that makes sense. So
I agree.
Either way you do it, it's a disadvantage. So there's no real correct way to do it, if that makes sense. And it's a very hard thing to get right because there's so many different ways to perceive it. Obviously, I think events like PB should just be able to tell people what maps are being played because the style of the event means that more of the roster's gonna want to practice anyways. So it's you want to fit the group of people that is the largest in terms of like the voice. So you want to kind of, what's the word? I don't know the word.
Appeal?
Just kind of appeal.
Yeah.
That's the word. Just appeal to the competitive players. So like something like PB, they should just be saying the maps and stuff. I think for something like a Block Wars or an MCC, it's you can kind of just do it either way because the proportion of people who I guess the ratio of people who want to sweat the event and VOD review compared to the people that want to play for fun in both events, I'd say is kind of 1-to-1, I think, where it's very 50-50. So you have like obviously all the top tier players who will probably VOD review. You have like kind of the second frags or maybe the third frags who will be like, oh, I want to try and improve. So that will usually make up about half of the roster, at least for MCC. I think Block Wars it's more like 70-30 in terms of 30% of the people who try and sweat the event and 70 just play for fun.
Yep.
I think MCC is more 50-50.
Yes.
But
I think.
I don't know.
Yeah, no. That's so. That whole discussion is so hard to balance because you already mentioned most of it, right? If you give info in terms of what maps are available, or even update videos, debatably are in that regard too, right? Because, for example, for Block Wars, I think we at least mention if like a map is rotated in or out, right? Because that's a change that's happened. It's debatable when you give that information what like the result of that will be and what the benefits and the negatives of it are at the same time, because let's say like a really high skill player or like a top player or like a sweat or whatever you want to call it, right, sees like, oh, this race map is in, they might watch the race map for their own personal improvement, etc. And on average, the casual player who doesn't really play Block Wars often, maybe a variety streamer who isn't as involved in Minecraft events and just plays Minecraft once a month just for Block Wars, right? They'll see that and be like, okay, cool, and then they won't look at it any further. The tricky thing for me in terms of the balance there is that there is like a secondary benefit to giving that info, but only for very select few players. For example, Kaman is one of the prime examples of like a really good team like top frag going like before an event even starts, because he will like actively try to talk to his teammates to be like, hey, do you guys want to prepare? I can help you. I'll like look at what maps are in, give you strats, etc. Which is good because obviously if Cam's team with someone who's new or like doesn't play as much or is just not as good at the game, he can help them improve in a bit more of like a natural sense. But again, on the flip side, you're gonna have people who only look at stuff for themselves and don't really think about like, oh, if I know this map super well, I can help my teammates by also giving the info to them. They'll just be like, I want to do better, blah blah blah, whatever, right? And then they'll VOD review and get a better improvement individually, and past that, it won't be anything that affects their team. So it is a very tricky, like thin line in terms of balance. I don't think, like you said, I don't think there is a correct approach for sure, because you're never winning, right? If you reveal the information, you have the top players doing better and the bottom players maybe having slight improvement. And if you don't reveal any information, anyone who's new is at an immediate disadvantage, and it's just very unwelcoming for their first time playing. So that
also,
balance is tough.
You can't just tell someone to not VOD review. That's not really something you can do, right?
Yes.
Like people will just want to do it anyways if they are passionate about wanting to play well. And it's like, if that was not the case, then things would be a lot easier. But because it's just it's a very simple thing that you just can't do. It just means it's very complicated.
Yeah, it's a balance that is just super tough. But I think it's something that won't really like change much going into like the 2025 events. I don't really think like so far it is like a standout big problem because there is only a handful of people who like really do put that extra effort into VOD reviewing to an extent where they're gonna get a significant advantage rather than just kind of be caught up to speed.
Yeah.
However, there are players who I've spoken to in the past. I will again not name names because I don't know if it's necessary. Who have expressed or yeah, who have like told me like they are personally not a fan of having to VOD review because to an extent, if one person VOD reviews, someone else might VOD review, mostly for top frags, right? And if most of the top frags VOD review, every top frag is going to be expected to VOD review, and it kind of again puts a little bit of pressure on the top players to be prepared going into an event. And for some that might not be very fun because they might want to approach an event casually, which it is quite the interesting like balance in that regard and how to approach that.
It just depends how much your event sways in one direction. Like PB has it easiest in my opinion because they're just swaying to the competitive side, so they know that more people in their roster is gonna VOD review anyways.
Mhm.
But like, and it's also easier because like I'll be honest, you're not gonna get and your typical like Block Wars VTuber who decides, oh, I want to try out Pandora's box. Like that's not something that's gonna happen often, right?
Right.
Therefore, it's their like kind of their stance on the whole VOD reviewing thing doesn't really need to be taken into consideration unless the voice is big enough where it fills a decent size of the roster.
Mhm.
So because PB's roster is so competitive, they don't really need to care
Right.
as much, and they can more focus on one perspective because it's the perspective that fills 80% of the whole roster.
Correct. I agree with that. That makes sense. It depends per event, but I also think, as happens in pretty much the entire event scene, once one event does some type of experimental change, other events will follow. So, guess we'll see.
Points.
Well, that's like a positive, right? For sure. Like, well, okay, for the most part. I think there's another discussion to be had for another day. The damage points are good, but can be...
If we talked about damage points today, this would go on for another 2 hours.
Damage points are good, but they're not perfect. Because
guys, let me go into a fight, crit 10 times and die and get first individual because I played correctly.
Yep. Anyways, that's a thing for another time. Maybe I'll have a discussion about. Well, maybe not. Look, I'll be transparent here. I love PB. I want to talk about PB, but it feels like anytime I talk about PB and I give my opinion, I get like what's it called? There's like a hive mind of like people who really love PB and really love competitive stuff who will like flat out 100% disagree with anything I say because I'm not a competitive player, and I'm just like, man, this isn't what makes me talk about this now. Like, you're not listening to me, so why would I even make the content? I don't know. Like some people, obviously, it's like a small group, but it does suck a little bit. So yeah. Anyways, to continue forward with the list of questions, this next question, I mean, you've seen it, of course. What's your favorite micro event experience? Before we get into the answer, multiple options. If you want to answer as much as possible, you can. Could either be your favorite full event experience, a specific game that you really loved, both. It could be your favorite event from 2024 of all time. Whatever you think is the best answer, feel free to do whatever approach you wish.
Okay, so I have technically four answers for this. Two of them are kind of the same reason. The other two are very different. I guess I'll go with like the kind of the two that are the same, which for me would be Mayhem 23 and Block Wars Chaos. I think these two events for me are an example of I had fun because I was with just a bunch of people that I knew who I was good friends with, and it was just kind of it was fresh, right? I think Chaos was very fresh because it was just a lot of stuff was very weird, and also the entire gimmick made it very fresh. It's like I've never played a Minecraft event on a controller before. It's just never something I've tried, and it's like the first time I do it is in a Block Wars. That's freaking cool. And for Mayhem 23, this was when they like kind of came back after their break, and I was just on a team with all of my friends pretty much, and we just kind of it was just a really fun experience because we were trying to win, but it was like a good mix of winning and for fun, and we ended up winning, and I don't know, it's just a very memorable experience. I think it was the first kind of large like jump Mayhem had as well because it was just such a well received event at the time. Um, from the changes that they made and stuff. Obviously, if you look back now, not really, because obviously a lot of expectations have gotten higher.
Yes.
But,
Yes.
which is okay. Well, I'll get into this at some point, but that is one of my least favorite things of the event community.
We'll get to that later as well. Yep.
I think Mayhem 23 and Block Wars Chaos were fun because I was with people who I knew, and it was a fun, kind of just a fun gimmick. It was either the event was fresh and new, or we were doing something crazy. In terms of the other two event experiences I call my favorites, one of which is obviously MCC. I said this before. I tie my MCC experience very much to my first time meeting all my friends at TwitchCon. So, to me, it really sticks out as a very memorable and fun experience. Even if at the end my MCC experience was at least bittersweet, I think a general consensus was that it was fun because it was the most unique event experience I'd ever had, like flat out.
Right.
Because obviously, first one, I'm not at my setup. I'm in a different country. I'm on a stage. Like it's such a different energy.
And like like in person, right? With a technical face reveal, right?
Yeah, it was the first event that me and you did a freaking
exactly.
Reveal,
It's
right?
crazy.
So it's like it was the fan service event, I think, at least that MCC
100%.
has had in a very long time.
Yep.
Because you had HBG rep, you had me and you rep. Like it was just such an event community and like communities that hadn't been represented as much in MCC to finally get that representation.
And also like
that's why I hope that one day that yeah, true, absolutely. I think that's why I hope that one day there'll be an MCC where there's like a few more lifestealers that get introduced for the first time, because that'd be cool. That's like lifesteal rep.
Like not like a rookies, because rookies is such like a tough like concept. Like in terms of like it's like a regular-ish event, but the main appeal to it is like it's an invitational for like one-time players that are highly like requested but can't really be easily added as like a main player. And you could have like you mentioned lifestealers maybe come in, and maybe you can have like obviously people come back like you and me and whoever like else would be like highly requested to come back, and it could even maybe not be audience polled because then it's a popularity contest, but it could maybe the audience could have some influence on like who they'd want to see like invited to this, kind of like if Rising was like a popularity contest, kind of, I guess. Which I know is like kind of like iffy, but I feel like that would be like just as a one-time event super interesting, and it doesn't even have to be exclusively like new people and like non-regulars. Like there could be regulars sprinkled in, right? You could have an HBG team with like Feinberg or Fruit if it's balanced somehow, or like a lifesteal team with like Hannah or SB, right? So, like that should still be possible, but I think that's such like an interesting like option. And I do agree with you. Like that would be so cool to have as like an event, just as like fan service. And then they could even skip like well, not skip, but like to make one of their like normal MCCs more special, you could just do that. Which again, debatable because it's also supposed to have like the opportunity for like the regular roster to sign up and play. But you know, I think if they want to make things gimmicky, that would be like super sick. I agree with you.
Yeah, I think the other event experience that was kind of good for me this year was, like you said, Rookies. I think Rookies 3 was my first event experience where I really said to myself, hey, I don't need to know everyone on my team to have a fun time, because that was my biggest fear for the longest time. It's why you never see me in Origins. It's why I'm typically pretty nervous when it comes to signing up with people, who I don't really know. Right. So, but Rookies was kind of an experience where it was like, okay, I could gel with these people pretty well, even though I don't know them, and I haven't really like watched any of their like content or streams or whatever, so I don't really know what I'm getting into. I know that as long as they have a similar mindset to me in this event, where it's like, yeah, they want to try and win, but like they're there to have fun, and that's kind of an energy that I wanted to match, and I did match it. And it just made me realize, hey, I should do this more often. I should let myself kind of not care anymore about being like kind of feeling comfortable in a team when realistically as long as I'm fitting the correct vibe of my team, I'll always be comfortable. I don't know. As weird as it sounds, I think that is the reason why I think Rookies was such a unique experience for me, and I think it's why it's so different from my other experiences, and why I kind of put it with them, because it's like, I like this event for different reasons. Like, I liked Chaos for a completely different reason. I liked Rookies for a completely different reason. Like, Block Wars Chaos was because fun gimmick with a lot of friends, and then Rookies is just like, oh, fun event where I get to kind of experiment where I stand in terms of who I can team with in events. So
it's like like an eye opener, I guess, you know, in a sense. Obviously, like, if we're being completely realistic, you're obviously going to be more open to accepting this opportunity in the Rookies environment, because not only is it the Block Wars, but also these are like, you know, known people. So to an extent, you can trust that in terms of content creation, they have a certain like quality to them that you can like guarantee in terms of like vibes and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
But I am happy to hear that it has opened your eye to other things potentially. Of course, not that you're gonna jump into every event to be like team me with everyone I've never heard of before. Like obviously you're gonna still want. It's more like instead of maybe, you know, asking for 3 out of your 4 teammates to be, you know, people, you know, you might ask for like 2 or maybe 1, like something like that. That's cool. And that's good to hear.
Like, I think on my sign up forms for events, I think one of the common questions asked is always like, how many people do you want to know on your team? And before I'd always put, I'd like to know like 3 people on my team. Now I usually put 1. So it's like, I'll at least have 1 person to gel off, and then like the rest of the team, I don't really mind, because it just gives me the most possible like opportunities to meet new people, whilst I still have someone on the team to bounce well off of. So it's like I'm getting best of both worlds, right?
Right. Yeah. No. I think
Block
that's
Wars
good.
8 was a good example of that, because at the time, like, I think so it was me, 4C, Pyro, Gracie, and Mid Mystic. I knew 4C pretty well, but I didn't really know the rest of the team that well, and that was kind of a good environment for me, because it was like I had someone to bounce off of pretty easily, and it was also an opportunity for me to meet new people. So I think like stuff like that in events where it's like I know someone at least, but I also get a chance to meet 1 or 2 new people. I think that's the best event experience for me, having just best of both worlds.
Hell yeah! All right, cool. Well, now on the flip side, what would you say was your least favorite Minecraft event experience ever? With the same thing, could be a specific full event, specific game, or just this year of all time. Whatever you feel like is the right answer here.
Oh my goodness, I have a few answers.
Uh-oh.
I don't mean to drag down this event, but a lot of Manias have been interesting, because I think it's the event that I've been balanced the kind of as the strongest, in a sense, where it is the event where I have been given weaker teams, and because I'm not in a space where I'm fully confident in being able to lead a team, especially at an event I'm not very sure of anyways. Like, I'm not the best Mania player in the world. I'm nowhere near that. I don't consider myself a top 5 Mania player. I consider myself a top 10, maybe top 12 Mania player.
Okay.
And it's like, put myself on a team where it's like, okay, my team, if you put like, I don't know, this is the type of team that Kel would get. I'm not gonna be able to lead a team as well as Kel can, I'll be honest. So so a lot of my Mania performances have been like, either my team gets top 2 or we get swept in the finale, because I don't really like the finale, or I get bottom 3 as a team. It's one of those. So like, there's a lot of examples. Like Mania 10 was bad, because it was my first time teaming with Brew, so we wanted to, you know, do well because we were both motivated, and then we just got completely destroyed. I think, what else? Mayhem 24 was unfortunate, because it was a similar situation where it was like, me and Kalen finally get to team, but every other team was absolutely juiced and kind of OP to the point where it was just unfair.
Yeah.
So we got destroyed. That was not very, that was like kind of annoying, because me and Kalen haven't been able to get like a kind of opportunity like that again to team in an event where we stand a chance. Because like, no shade to the rest of our team, but the Mayhem Balancers saw me and Kalen wanted to duo and then picked out 2 of the least experienced players for us. And it was kind of unfortunate, I guess.
Yeah.
They didn't really. Every other team was like, had like. The balancing of every other team was very much, okay, we need to counter this duo in every way possible. It doesn't matter how OP the teams are. as long as this team doesn't win, and our team got 7th. So
That's
it was a
crazy.
bit overboard. But
That's like if
that was
that's
another
like if
example.
with like MCC back in the day when Dream and Techno wanted the team, every other team had like fruit berries, like
Yeah,
and then another
like,
fruit berries.
You literally
like,
have
bro.
4 S tiers on every. The exact like example I can give is that if it's like Dream Techno on a team, except every single other team had somebody who was a top 10 player. Like every single player on every other team was a top 10 player.
That's crazy.
Like,
Yeah, that's
that is
disgusting.
kind of the best example I can give for that experience. So, not great.
Mhm.
I think I placed 10th individual.
Holy.
And at one point in the event, this is really funny. One point in the event, me and Kaylin were top 2 because they played all the individual games first, and our teammates were bottom 2.
Ah.
And our team was exactly in the middle of the board. So it's like,
Ah.
now the PvP games are up. This is gonna be fun, and we get bottled in every single one.
Yep, sounds about right.
It's like, okay, nice, man. That's great. Whatever event experience have been. I guess my return to PB kind of, in a sense, I had a lot of false hope where it was like, my team looked pretty strong. It was me, Nom, Nuke, and Legundo.
Right.
But when it's a PB and your team is barely the worst team, every other team is gonna look at you in a PvP game and go, "Oh, that's the free team to kill."
Yeah.
Like, that is the team you can guarantee kill, which meant that every single PvP game in that event, we got destroyed in because there is nothing we can do if 2 teams decide to converge on us for points, and we can't push any other team with the confidence that we will win. So that was demoralizing because it was another event where it's like, it's a what I like to call a Sandwich Dog classic, where it's like, oh, he wins every movement game easily because, well, he doesn't have to help his team in that, right? It's completely individual. But he loses every other game. I actually done the last 2 PBs. That is exactly what has happened.
Right.
So that was a little bit demoralizing.
That makes sense. No, that's valid.
So PB15 was definitely better because our team just did better overall. But PB14 was a little unfortunate. The team was great though, so I don't consider it a bad experience because everyone on the team I knew, and it was just kind of, it was fun. But I think experiences like that, where it's like, as an event, like as someone who's usually the best player on a team and is expected to lead, and then I lose every game where it's completely based on me leading the team, it's very demoralizing because then it means that I'm more likely to put 100% of the blame on myself, because it's like, oh, I could have led this team better, therefore we would have played better. So that's what event experiences get demoralizing for me, I think, is when that sort of trend happens where, sure, I do fine in the movement, but something like a PvP game is just going to completely throw off my mental, because it's like, if I do bad, then I'm more likely to blame myself because I'm expected to lead my team.
I think, honestly, that's even also a very interesting topic. I feel like the non-PvP team experience in an event is, on average, always going to be the worst. Unless you're playing like MCC and the game rosters like Build Mart, Bingo, Railroad Rush, etc., or like only that and like barely any PvP. I feel like having a weak PvP team is, on average, always going to be the worst end of the stick, because you're just at an inherent disadvantage in one of the most impactful types of game modes that you have to deal with in an entire event, right? Battle Royale style games are in every single major event, and consistently, if you're bad at PvP, you're losing that game. Whether it's SG, whether it's Battle, whether it's even Sky Battle in that sense, you're not winning if your team is bad at PvP. Maybe with the exception of like a Fruit Berries carry, but that's, usually Fruit will have another player on his team that's at least okay at PvP, to the extent where it's a good PvP team. So yeah, no, that's rough. Because, and the thing that sucks for me the most in terms of like block wars balancing when it comes to PvP, like being such a big deal, is like, for example, most recently in Twitch Rivals, I don't know if you know the teams vaguely from Twitch Rivals block wars, but the green team was a team that on paper looked very strong, and I was really hoping that it was going to really be a really good team, because a lot of those people either hadn't won before or rarely did super well.
Was that Pete's team?
Oh yeah, it was Pete, Jordan, Smant, Fur, and Spiff, which was a team I really liked and I thought was going to be really competent in this roster. I think it was a bit of a hit or miss. I think Fur might not have had the best like event day, which obviously is totally fine. But I know when looking at their VOD or something that was pointed out to me, they had like a pretty bad mental going into the PvP games, because they knew like, oh, this is not our like cup of tea in terms of like skill set, we are going into this game and we're gonna have to like we're getting thrown into this arena against other teams in a combat style game mode, and we are probably gonna lose. And it's just like, I don't know. That's just feels so. I feel so bad because that's like a really cool combo of people that I really want to work, and then it's like a quarter of the game roster are games they just actively don't look forward to because they know that they're gonna lose it, and it's just like, it sucks. It sucks so bad.
Yeah, that's an unfortunate situation because it's like you don't want to just make a team where it's like, oh, every team has like semi-competent PvPer, so every team is balanced in that sense, because then it gets to the point where every team feels the same, right? Yeah. Having different skill sets for each team makes them feel unique, but then again that can cost potentially, for example, my team from PB, or green team from Block Wars Twitch Rivals, where it's like if they get a certain type of game, they're just screwed. Like, nothing you could do about it. So that's kind of where things get tricky with balancing. Because I think a big discussion I've heard about, I won't go too into detail with it here because obviously time, but right. One thing that I've heard the discussion of before is, oh, why get to a finale if you know you're a bad finale team and you're gonna lose.
That's sucks to hear that mentality, but like
Me, like, I won't say this is like a huge reason to why like I lost rookies, for example, but like one thing I will say is that my team went against a really good finale team.
Yes.
So confidence was not there at all. It was like, we're just literally against the FPS team in an FPS finale. What do we do?
Look, that one I knew. Okay, so I said this already before. That red team in rookies was intended to be a stronger team. I did have a bit of an oversight in terms of finale that they were just going to win. Like, the only way that actually there was no way that they were going to lose the finale. That was actually an oversight. Them getting to finale was intended, but the part after I was like, I forgot about this part.
Like it's existed for so long as well. Like back as early as like, I don't know, Sapnap Dodgeball. Like that, it's as early as that it's been, where it's like if you have this one person on your team for a finale, you automatically win because they're just so good at the finale they can solo carry. But like, I guess the solo carry thing is not as much of a big deal anymore, and especially in a lot of finales outside of MCC. I think MCC has actually the finale with the most solo carry potential.
Sure.
Because, funneling exists. Also, just like, if you're really good at dodging and you're really good at shooting, it means that you're just less likely to die and you're more likely to hit shots. I feel like a solo carry potential like that is kind of not as seen in other finales. Like, for example, PB Coliseum is like MCC's finale, except if everyone had more of a purpose in the finale, if that makes sense, where less potential for solo plays, but more potential for people who don't usually think they do well to do well, if that makes sense. It's more of that balance. And I think in an event like, so for example, like Block Wars' finale, to me, I think positives is that it's very unique. And I think it's a very fresh take on a finale. And one disadvantage I will say with it is that it very much caters to a certain group of people in terms of like skill set, right?
Sure.
It's not something that is accessible to everyone. So, for example, I went in that finale knowing fully well, if we go against the red team, we probably lose because they all know how to, like, they have a fierce experience. Their comms are going to be like at a freaking pro level. And it's like, I'm leading my team of Elden Ring streamers, Nintendo streamers, and it's like, we got this, guys.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I think the Block Wars finale is like what you mentioned. Like, there's positives and negatives to it because it's accessible in terms of like barrier of entry is very low. It's just that some people, before they even play that game, you know that they are going to be good because of what they do outside of playing Block Wars, right? Zekken, obviously, he is on Sentinels, gets paid to play Valorant, like, professionally. Yeah. Of course he's going to be good at that game. Like, no shit, right? He's gonna do well. But that's just like, I think it's at a sort of point where, like, on average, it is going to be fair, and on average, it is going to be, like, more accessible, and I think on average it is going to be good. However, in like such a specific case example as what you guys had with rookies, I totally understand that you leave that event going like, man, that finale sucked because you're like, yeah.
I don't think it ruined my experience per se, but it left a little bit of a bittersweet taste. So it's like, oh yeah, we the whole time we're thinking we can win, and then it's like, oh, I forgot that there's a chance where it's pretty much impossible almost.
I know Spiff was pretty I think it was either in feedback or somewhere else. He was like pretty vocal that he wasn't the biggest fan of there being like a ranged finale, and I understand that's very much because of that specific example. Which is like, yeah.
I guess the only fix is to make a finale which more resembles a team game, but then people will complain that it is less
boring.
Solo carry potential and also boring.
Yep.
Which I've seen this because Chamber Trials has a finale that is very much based on that, and I'll be honest, it's boring, but it's also a finale where everyone can contribute. So it's like, it's weird. So it's
it is tough.
It's so hard to make a good finale game. I think it's almost impossible. I think the problem is that
Dodgeball's the best, and it was the first.
Dodgeball is the best, and it was first, and nothing else has ever been better than it. I respect Block Wars for how much they've tried to innovate, and how much they've experimented. That is one thing I'll always say Block Wars has done the best with finales. But they have not gotten something as good as Dodgeball, which makes me, and it's just not their fault because you know, haven't been able to crack a formula that is as good as Dodgeball. Nothing will ever surpass Dodgeball, I don't think.
Well, even the real life like counterpart with Dodgeball is so simple. It is something you like do in school as a little kid so early because it's so accessible, and at any age range you can obviously, as long as you're not like a 30-year-old fighting a 6-year-old in Dodgeball, like the equal age range fighting each other in Dodgeball will be fair at any moment, and you assume with balancing in events the same thing applies, right? Because Dodgeball wouldn't be fair if it's the Simmers versus, you know, all the S tiers, hypothetically speaking, but because you have on average balanced teams, it'll be fair, which I think is a very interesting it's very interesting to think about it like that, because like that's just like the real life counterpart is balanced no matter what, pretty much, as long as the equal teams roughly. So you'd have that case as well in the in-game version.
Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna try to go through the questions a little bit quicker because we spent an hour on 6 of them and I wrote down 15. So I also caught a new fish. Let's go. Very quick question, because this one I would be surprised if there's a lot of depth to it. Who is your dream teammate per one of the, you know, big 3 events? So who's your dream teammate for MCC, dream teammate for Block Wars, dream teammate for PB? And I assume it's mostly from like the people who regularly play in them or are like already someone that's considered a, you know, MCC or Block Wars player, not so much like someone who like played like Rising or something or like one time, right? Just like a MCC player you really want to team with, Block Wars player you really want to team with, PB player you really want to team with, whether it's someone you've never teamed with before or want to team with again.
I have a few answers for this. I think one, for MCC, I think I have 3 picks. I think I'll just say them: Ant Venom, Critic Zeus, Fruitberries. I think Ant Venom is the reasoning for Ant Venom is that he is actually one of the players that has vouched me to MCC the most, which is very, very cool. So I think that kind of that teaming experience kind of makes sense, where it's like, he's wanted me to be in MCC for a while, and it would make sense if we teamed for like if I ever had like a first event, because it would just kind of make sense like chemistry wise. We've also teamed before, so like it does make sense.
What, in what?
Mayhem. We teamed in Mayhem. It was me, Nom, and Venom, and Fulham.
Okay. I know Ant is a very big voucher for like higher skill players, so that makes sense. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I think he wants to see the roster be like more unique and switched up like every now and again, where it's like you kind of rotate the players, if that makes sense. Which I guess makes sense. It's like a advantage and disadvantage, where it's like you put in players that are highly requested, but then you risk potentially phasing out players who have been in for a while, and people who watch them are gonna be sad. So it's like,
we had this discussion on stream while I was talking and you were in chat, right? About the whole like MCC top frags it's like such a small pool where like you could maybe throw in a person once or twice a year as like an occasional thing. That's another discussion for a whole other time. But Yeah. So
Yeah.
who and then you said what? So Zeus and Fruit as well. for MCC?
Zeus, reasoning for Zeus is that Zeus is one of the first players that after I kind of had like the whole blow up thing, one of the first people that kind of gave me the light of day in terms of just like kind of reaching out and going like, hey, thanks for like all the coaching stuff. That was really cool. And that was like, I was like, oh, that was chill. And then we just started like hanging out a bit. So like
Okay.
I kind of quickly became like pretty good friends with Zeus. Kind of 2022-ish sort of time where this was like kind of middle of towards the end of season 2 where it was like I kind of was known as the guy that coaches the MCC players. So that was just like another reason. I think that would be cool. And we've also never teamed in an event before.
Right.
And
Well,
other
he's also
example
only
is
an
just
MCC
yeah, that's
for the
the
most
thing.
part, at least.
And then other example is fruit berries because fruit berries. I don't really have an explanation for this.
No, that's valid. I
Fruit
understand.
berries.
I honestly, I expected for MCC for you to mention Phil. I thought
Oh,
that was-
Phil as well. Actually,
Yeah.
no, Phil's a good answer. I think Phil as well. I think Phil because I can't team with him anywhere else.
True. I mean, yeah, I haven't really had the chance to get him for blockers, so yeah. That would be the other option, obviously, at PB. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe. But yeah. No, that's
then
cool.
for Block Wars, I've always said I don't really have like a concrete answer for Block Wars. I kind of mesh Block Wars and PB's answers into the same group because I just put 4 people. I put Kalen, Radoons, 4C, Nominal Gravy.
Right.
Nom is just a we've duoed so much. We're just a great duo. He's very passionate about wanting to do well, and I like helping people do well if they want to. So
Right.
it's like a duo that's always worked. 4C is someone who has the polar opposite energy that I do in events, but in a good way, where it's like he doesn't really care as much, and he's very high spirits. So you put him with me, and it's like it kind of keeps me in the loop and makes me realize like, hey, I don't need to be down on myself if I do bad, because 4C is just a beacon of light in terms of positivity in events, which I think in terms of teammates, 4C will always be one of the best teammates in terms of like morale. I don't
Right.
think that gets talked about enough.
I agree. I
and
don't think
then
I've teamed
for-
with 4C before, but I agree. Yes.
4C's a great teammate. 4C's always fun to team with. Radoons is another pick because Radoons always wants to do well in events. He wants to be a top player. That's what he's always said. And
Right.
he's always like I've always gave him advice, and he's always wanted like advice from me in terms of like what to do better. I've always just told him get better at movement because it's the only game that is completely individual. Therefore, your team doesn't matter. In a sense where if you have a bad team, it's not going to affect your individual if you're good at movement. It's how I stay afloat in the top 5 if I have a team where I'm not very confident in like the PvP games.
Right.
And just kind of, I guess like me, like it's kind of like the teacher to student mentality where it's like I like team with
right.
Red. We've also won an event before, so it's like
That helps.
Yeah. And then other example is Kalen because we are yet to have a good event experience teaming together.
Hey, Block Wars Chaos.
True, Block Wars Chaos. That is one I just forgot.
There
Block
you
Wars
go.
Chaos is the only time I've had a good experience in an event with Kalen.
And you team with 3 of the people you mentioned for all those
Yeah.
events in that same good, so that makes sense, yeah.
Says why that team is good. Also, I will mention honorable mention Jet Cass.
Right, of course.
The only person in an event I can team with and be fully British.
Of course.
He just has a unique level of energy which I kind of am able to reach as well, and we just have great chemistry. I think we have really good chemistry. We've always had a really good chemistry in events. So
Yeah, Jack
it's,
has
it's a
unique
Jack.
energy to the extent where didn't he like faint on a stream for one of the events?
Yes.
Like what? Brother, how?
He's passionate about it.
Oh, I can tell.
He's very passionate.
No, really.
I don't think he got to a point where he didn't really care as much in terms of like individual anymore because he wanted to focus on content, which is completely valid.
Yep.
But like he's passionate. He's always been passionate about this space.
Jackass
he's always
is
a
the
great person to team with.
Jackass is the main like Origins player who I've had potentially considered for if we do another Block Wars Chaos to potentially be like the guest like Origins player.
Yeah.
Instead of like Sam and Kalen from last time, right? You just get Jackass. Maybe.
you get like a team of like Jack, and you get to put him on a team of like Joe Bart or something.
I don't know about that, but yeah, maybe something along those lines.
Like an example of like something along those lines.
yeah.
Where just like you put someone like who he'd normally never team with due to circumstances, but someone who can match his energy.
Sure, right. Yeah, I think. Well, I think Joe is like Joe in Blockhorse is a very interesting example because I feel like he's known like online more for like being a super high energy person, but I feel like in Blockhorse Joe's a relatively like chill. Because he like actually wants to like compete. So he's like a more locked in and not as like chaotic. But for a chaos event, I mean, you know, that'd be a little bit.
You could put him. I feel like Jack would be a great fit for somebody like you. Put him on a team with I know there's some like very loud VTubers that play Block Wars, like just like an energy like that where it's like kind of a similar like energy to like Sleepy vibes in terms of like energy where it's just loud.
Such a troll.
Yeah, just a troll face team.
Okay, no, that's valid. I think Jack is that's very cool. I mean, I am gonna keep him in mind for if I even have the option to put someone from Origins in, but it would be really funny. Yeah. I also think in terms of like he's known enough to the point where like if he got announced, it would be like actually hype, not just like hype to us, right? It would be like people would be like, oh my god, that's the guy from like the smaller events or whatever.
That's the guy that fainted. That's the guy that did the Triple H after winning Mayhem 23.
That's the guy that didn't he do the Gangnam Style or something?
He did the Triple H.
Oh, is that a Triple H? Okay,
yeah.
Gotcha. I thought it was a Gangnam Style. I was like, what the hell is going on here? Okay. Cool. So that's a bunch of people that you want to team with. That's very fun. Didn't mention me, but that's okay. And of course, I mean.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
No, he hates Wolfie Mogobale, actually. No. This is a ploy the entire time. He's like, I'm doing this just for the views, just for the likes in the comment section. I'm gonna make myself suffer through all these videos just to get 10 likes in the YouTube comments. It's so worth it.
Oh my glorb.
Anyways, next question. We're gonna skip a few of them, but I'll do one after. Just a general question. Do you think the Minecraft event scene is in a good spot overall right now? Like, big events, small events, etc.
Interesting, because I feel like a lot of where it's at is very based on the community's takes, which leads me to another question. I think like I could do this question with this one.
Okay.
Let me see what the question was. And it was like, what do you think is possibly missing from the Minecraft event scene right now?
Yeah.
And the answer I gave to that was the word optimism. Because people are not optimistic in this. I'll say it. People are not optimistic. If there is something that goes wrong at an event, people will bash and bash and bash about it on like Reddit and like event chats and stuff. And it's just a toxic energy sometimes. And I'm like, can we just enjoy the fact that groups of people come together and do a lot of this purely out of passion and don't have, the money in their pockets to make it potentially as big as it could be, and they just do it for the sake of they want to do it because it's fun, and they let creators play it for free. Like, I think that's cool. Right. I think that we should look and respect that more instead of going, well, the points were slightly off this event, which means I'm going to complain for an hour about how that is an awful thing and how it has ruined my entire day.
Oh,
it's just like,
dude, holy.
Oh no, man! I just think people need to be a bit more optimistic. I get criticism, but I think it takes people over too much.
I agree. I think another thing, just to kind of, because it kind of works alongside it, that I think is very noticeable as well. It's kind of overlapping. Is entitlement. Not just viewers, but sometimes players as well are so entitled to events and playing in events, and when they play something that's not as good, they're gonna be like, this is awful. I have MCC or Block Wars to play anyway, so I'm gonna just trash on this. Like, sometimes I'm just like baffled at, and I do it sometimes too. So like I sometimes I accidentally will be too critical of something.
Oh, sometimes I do it too.
But like sometimes some people consistently will complain and complain and complain about events they play in, and then the next event they're still playing. If you hate this experience, stop signing up, man. Like,
my mentality is that if you don't enjoy an event, don't sign up, because it means someone who would enjoy the event more than you can sign up. That's why I sometimes I don't sign up to a lot of smaller events, because I know I'm not going to enjoy them. Sure, it may give me a double viewership stream for that one day, but if I'm not going to enjoy it, I don't want to sign up. You know what I mean? So, like, I like giving that opportunity to other people. I guess that's a kind of blended from the previous question of like me being a voice in smaller event communities,
right?
Where I will not play it. So for example, Chamber Trials is an event where I had fun the first time, but I don't want to sign up again because I know someone else is going to enjoy it more than I do, and I just play it for the viewership reasons or whatever. So I don't really want to sign up to it again and then just have someone else not get the chance to play and get benched because I have higher priority than them in that event. So like certain events like that, I just won't sign up if I don't think I'm gonna have like crazy amounts of fun compared to somebody else.
No, that's very valid. I have heard that specifically Chimbo Trials is definitely an event that very much prioritizes people who are clouted, you could say.
Yeah. Also, Chamber Trials is just an event where the games are not bad. It's just they've all been done before, if that makes sense. Like the event ran smoothly. It was a good, like, smoothly ran event. Like it was all fine. It's just it was very kind of bare bones. It reminded me of like early season 1 MCC in terms of like it's like kind of
that's not
simplicity
a bad thing.
and stuff. It's not awful. It means it's recognizable to an event community and scene, but it just means that it didn't bring anything like super unique to the table.
It also kind of shows that it has potential, because if you can kind of replicate that feeling of MCC Season 1, then you've done something right.
That's exactly what Mayhem does, in my opinion. Mayhem is like a late Season 1 energy.
Yeah, it's just like, you can replicate that feeling, but if you want to be considered one of the big dogs, you do have to scale up past that, which can be a little challenging depending on what resources are available.
I think it's why I've always had high motivation for Buy and Battle, because they're doing exactly that with what they have, and they have a very talented team behind them. So it's like, it's definitely very first time in a while where we've had an event like this. Like the last time that happened was Block Wars, where it's like, oh, they have a lot of potential because they they know how to do a lot of things with like plugins and UI and like how to try just kind of ability to try new things. Like I feel like Buy and Battle has such a leeway in terms of what they can do because they don't have the common trope of like, because of how their event is right now, you still I think it's like kind of still a little tricky to put it in the group of the normal events because of how different things are in the event right now, which it is a good thing in a sense because it allows them to experiment more and not get as much criticism for it, and then see what people's feedback is, which I think is a good thing. So I just feel like Buy and Battle have like a very empty canvas, which they have the potential to kind of grasp and expand. So I guess an event like that, I'm like very, very like eyes on for. I'll always be watching it like carefully and just like keeping an eye on it because I know like it has a chance to be super big. Like it has a chance to be like PB level.
It's interesting you mentioned PB, because to me PB and Buy and Battle feel like kind of polar opposites in terms of like what like level of progress they have in terms of making the event like really good. Because to me, PB in terms of like substance is one of the best contenders. The game design is pretty good. On average, like they have some standout games that are like the best in the entire event scene for certain categories. But Buy and Battle on the flip side is like, right off the bat, their visuals are like some of the best across the entire scene. But then in terms of substance, it's a little lackluster here and there. So it's interesting to see like how both of those events kind of battle it out in terms of like fighting for third, because PB definitely is third, but like Buy and Battles,
they're there for different reasons, like they're trying to achieve different things, and I kind of hope they achieve different things. I like events that do different things. I like where PB is right now, because in a sense, technically PB has no competition. Maybe PB's competition is Mayhem, but like it's not trying to compete with Block Wars or MCC because it doesn't need to.
It's
because it's filling a completely different like type of player base, which is nice. And that also means that Block Wars doesn't really have to compete because they're being more variety focused than MCC. Therefore, they can just be their own event. I hate it when events are like compared to one another when they're trying very much to achieve different things. So I'm hoping Buy and Battle enters that league where they kind of don't have to compete. They just do their own thing and no one cares.
I think I agree. I think in terms of competition with Block Wars and MCC, the main thing that I think people compare the two for is just if Block Wars is able to potentially take that #1 spot, because it is like by far the best contender to potentially do it. I don't think it should. I don't know if it will, because MCC just has, in my opinion,
MCC
a lot more
has
talent.
too much legacy.
They have legacy, but they also have a lot more talent behind their like team so far that's at least been proven. Black Horse I think has more potential, but MCC has just more guaranteed like quality.
Guaranteed success.
Yeah.
Because they have people who've been doing it for 5 years.
And also in terms of like longevity, MCC's roster is so more attached to the event, where like in Black Horse, if half the people that played Black Horse disappeared and another half came in, it wouldn't feel that much different after a few events. Whereas with MCC, if half the people that played MCC actively disappeared and equal amount of new people were added, it would feel like entirely different for like a long time. You'd be like, whoa, this is like, even after a year, you'd be like, this feels so different and weird, in my opinion.
Yeah. MCC's success is, I'd say right now, a lot of MCC's like reasoning for being so above every other event is because they are the most tapped into the Hermitcraft community.
Yes.
And that is the largest Minecraft community, at least in my opinion right now.
Yes, no, I agree.
For like, that is closest to the event space. Like, it's larger than Lifesteal, which is difficult to achieve. So, it's like, that's kind of crazy.
Hermits in MCC is like a prime example of like what goal other events should have if they want to like make it big, which is not a requirement. It's just like if you want to be like larger, if you want to establish yourself, find a community that's like you can kind of make your event their event. Like, obviously
that's exactly what PB have done with Lifesteal.
They're starting to do that. I really, really hope they stick to it, because I think that's genuinely just beneficial for PB to become kind of the event that's known for Lifestealers to be in there.
Yeah.
I think it's the way it's designed fits the Lifesteal like roster pretty well, because they're like inherently like good and somewhat competitive players, and I just think it's overall like it would be very like cohesive in terms of like having both the Lifesteal audience and PB like kind of go hand in hand. So, yeah.
I think there's yet to be an event like kind of area, at least to a larger extent, that have branched Hermits and Lifesteal together as well. I feel like they're the two communities and events that feel the most separate to me.
The only time it's happened is in Black Horse. And technically MCC with Hannah. Just Hannah doesn't feel like a proper
because
Lifesteal
Hannah
member
was in MCC for like over a year before Lifesteal, so
like
same with SB.
I respect her being a Lifesteal member, but it's just like when I think of Lifesteal member, my first like people that come to mind is like Rad, Clown, Zam, Ash, like whatever, right?
When I think of a Hermitcraft Lifesteal collab, I think of like a Radoons and Scar team. That's what I think of. Or something like that, or it's like it's never happened before, but if it happened, people would love it. You know what I mean?
It has okay, well, not that one specifically. It has technically happened in Black Horse, but I'm pretty sure because Parker was on a team with False for one of the Black Horse events, but I think this was when Parker wasn't in Lifesteal at the time. Like he was on his like break from the SMP, so it doesn't technically count. I do think Black Horse is the most, and also Clown and Cub teamed in Dragon Pit as well. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, true.
Not that was like the most cohesive combination of players, but
it was also a substitute.
It was also a substitute. That is true. Now I do agree. Like Lifesteal and Hermits is like, it's kind of the modern day like best crossover that could possibly happen for Minecraft events to really popularize themselves, similar to what happened with like all the SMP creators and the Dream SMP audience, like early MCC era, right? Where like Tommy would be talking to like Grian and like
that was unheard of at the time. That was
that was crazy. That was genuinely like that was revolutionary for like Minecraft event collaborations. Or like Tommy was on a team with like Vicstar. They obviously knew each other already, but like in an event live streamed for 3 hours, like that's huge. It's such a big deal, such a big opportunity. And I think, like you mentioned, I fully agree. Lifesteal and Hermits are like the best two audiences to potentially overlap. The only slight like not problem but slight like potential issue is that the audiences I feel like are different in like behavior. Lifesteal audience feels very much more like modern day creator, maybe like short form audience to an extent as well. Whereas Hermits feel like a much more like mature, like, you know, not like there's going to be young people in the Hermit audience, obviously, but it feels more chill. So you have like chill and high energy like together. I don't know how well that will work like cohesively, but I do agree that is like the best opportunity to potentially have Some cool
Yeah,
crossovers
absolutely.
happen. Okay. I'm gonna skip a few questions, and we're just gonna go to this one that I think is very interesting. Which player do you think you are most comparable to in events?
I have two answers for this. I'm kind of I'm literally in the middle of these two players that I consider myself, and that is Kalen and Fruberries. I am just the exact middle point of those two players. If they did a freaking fusion dance, that'd me. I don't know, man. I'm like I have the parkour ability that Kalen does, maybe slightly worse, but I have that ability, and then I have kind of Fruit's sort of PvPing ability, I guess.
Pop off potential.
Yeah. I think that like I've always just seen myself as very much in between this, because like my style of mechanics as well is like in terms of what I have to offer in terms of my strengths, it's like sort of Kalen's abilities, but in terms of the way I show it, it's like Fruit's like kind of mechanics. So I'm very like flicky, I'm very like fast, whereas like I kind of show that if like with more pure parkour like elements, because like Kalen with like pure parkour elements is very like controlled and like very much like consistency, right?
Right.
Whereas I'm very much based like kind of flicky based aim and very much faster, sort of like high risk, high reward type like plays and stuff. So I guess I kind of just have always had a mix of those two players in terms of my like play style.
Makes sense, yeah. Those were the two I expected you to mention. I was just like, I should ask just in case the answer is different, because then you have something like, oh, wait, you feel like you're the same as Korean? What? That's crazy.
No, I would not be. Unfortunately, not. Maybe another player I'd be similar to is like, I don't know, maybe like, what player would I least be maybe like comparable to? Maybe is like I've always said like Kel or Feinberg are the two I'm like least comparable to.
Okay. I guess it depends on how you compare people. Like, is it like approach in terms of like how how like
they're the most like good at the game, but for different reasons type players. Where it's like I completely rely on like one thing to get loads of my points, and I do that one thing really well. Whereas they're consistent at everything. So that's very different in that sense.
Yeah, that's fair. I was gonna think like least comparable player would be like the worst player, and then also someone who has like a very different vibe, like a Jack Manifold or something.
Yeah.
Not that Jack Manifold's the worst player, but like
like a Tommy in it maybe. Like
it's like someone who's like fully not trying and like super screamy, and then also doesn't do well, and then also doesn't care about the team. Yeah, Tommy in it. Yeah, never mind. That's the number one. That's it. That is the least sandwich.
It is crazy because we have like the least chemistry of all time, and then it's like he's the only reason I'm in the event community. Yeah, it's like wow. I mean,
really the only like parts that no, actually Connor Eats Pants, that would be even less comparable, because he's like everything that Tommy Innit does, except he's also American.
And he's also actually bad at Minecraft. Like Tommy's also decent at Minecraft. Bad,
yeah. I think you are polar opposite of Connor Eats Pants. There you go. We found the answer.
This is so true.
All right, then two more questions. One, they're kind of go hand in hand, but I'll just do them individually. Do you personally have a goal with Minecraft events that you would like to accomplish this year, 2025?
So I think the rookies debate, where it's like I want to team with more people that I haven't teamed with before, is one thing I'll always say. Because I like the new experience. I like being able to meet new people from events and be like, oh hey, like, you know, we're both thrown into the same space with the same kind of goal, even if we do different things outside of that. I think that's cool. Right. It's like if I teamed with a hermit, like our content is so different, but we're in this event and we've been put together and we have the same goal, and that kind of helps us to kind of make a connection that we would never be able to make previously. That's why I like events, because it's able to branch communities together. Another more personal goal of mine is I usually consider an event complete for me if I've first individualed an event and also won, or done both in the same event. So far I've only done that with one event, which is Mayhem, and I've done it twice. So my goal would be to maybe do that with Pandora's Box, maybe a Block Wars, maybe an MCC. If
fingers crossed, MCC.
Again. Yeah, fingers crossed.
Right.
Not really so much about like the smaller events as much anymore. I've kind of stopped caring about like my performances in those as much now. I think the ones I would be more focused on is PB Block Wars, and then maybe MCC. Because Mayhem, even though like if Mayhem comes back, and I'd still play because I enjoy Mayhem. I don't think I'd care about my individuals much because I've already gotten first individual twice and I've won the event 3 times. So
How about Buy and Battle?
kind of Buy and Battle is interesting because Buy and Battle is like
Oh yeah,
like
you
previously
already
mentioned, the indiv
Yeah.
is weird.
Right.
I've won the event twice as well.
Okay. Okay.
Already. So it's, to be fair, one of my teams was OP. But
That's
like,
crazy, by the way. There's been like 4 of them.
I've played 3 and I've won 2.
That's crazy.
And then the one that I didn't win was the one that broke. So but I think, I mean, I guess I'd still want to get first in a Buy and Battle just to say I've done it, but it's not like it'd feel more awesome for me to get first in like a PB or a Block Wars than it would for me to get first in a Buy and Battle.
Yeah, of course.
I don't know.
That's fair.
But like, not in a bad way, just in like a, I don't really mind too much. I'm more here for the fun. I think Buy and Battle is more for fun in terms of the game roster anyways, so I'm less likely to play it, like, try hard it. That's kind of how I did with Block Wars. Like, the game roster is just not like a PB or a Mayhem roster. Therefore, I kind of didn't feel the need to kind of try as much, in a sense, in terms of like having to worry about my individual, because it's like, oh, I can just kind of goof around and I'll do well. So
That's fair.
yeah, my goal is just to kind of quotation marks complete events where I get first in an event and then I win it. Just to show I've done them.
Right. All right, cool.
So
No, that's valid. And then one more question. This is the one that I left until the end because it's the one you don't know. Which event are you looking forward to the most in 2025? And additionally, if you want, rank them tier list style, like first to last, whatever, right? How much you are looking forward to them in order.
Okay, this one is very based on what I'm a part of, so I'm more likely to kind of be excited for something like a Biome Battle or a PB, because I know I'm more likely to be in those. I think I'm very kind of, it's hard for me to be excited for something like a Block Wars when I genuinely don't know what's coming next, which I guess is a good thing, because it's like, it means if something unique comes up, then it's like, oh, that's cool. I haven't seen that before. That's
valid.
nice. So like MCC, I'm very like, I feel like MCC, and not in a bad way, but I feel like they've done everything. MCC have very much checked all the boxes, so it's kind of hard for me to be enthusiastic about it in terms of like what it's gonna do to improve. Like, there's nothing I'm looking at it where it's like, oh, this is their year, their opportunity to do this. Like, I don't know what they're gonna do. You know what I mean?
Right.
Whereas something like Biome Battle, I have an answer to that, so I'm more likely to be motivated to see it. Like, Mayhem, I'm pretty like optimistic for, because Mayhem is good when they make changes, and I'm hoping that after they have a break and they come back with changes, then, you know, it's the most likely time for them to be like the event that I enjoy a lot. Because I think if Mayhem had really consistent changes, they'd be like potentially up there with PB if they'd like really tweaked some of their games and stuff. It's just they don't really change much, so therefore I have a reason to want to be excited for that event, because I know exactly what it is. I guess having an event be in a spot where I don't know what's coming next makes it hard for me to be kind of excited for them, rather just like curious, I guess. I guess that's a way to explain it.
That makes sense. That makes sense, yeah.
I think my consensus is that MCC I will always kind of look at and go, oh, if they do something cool, then that's pretty cool, I guess. Because I'm not as involved in MCC as I am involved in other events. If I was more involved with MCC, I'd be more excited.
Right.
I think it just completely depends on how much involved I am with the space. So like, I was a huge advocate for Mayhem like a year back when they were doing like all their like obviously like changes and whatnot, and like I was always optimistic for them. Same with Mania for the longest time. Maybe not as much anymore because I don't really think I'll play much Mania anymore. PB, I'm very excited to see what changes. Biome Battle, obviously, because they have just an empty canvas to work whatever they want with on. So curious to see how that goes. Block Wars kind of have found their formula, therefore it's just kind of, they'll probably surprise me. But I don't really have an idea of what they would do.
No, that's
and then
valid.
Same with MCC.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. So you would say, like, in terms of like a conclusion on that, it's like the events you're least looking forward to are the like ones that have already been established, like Block Wars and MCC, right? There is that surprise factor isn't like to be expected, but if it happens, you're happy that it happens.
Yeah, it's welcome.
Yeah, and then you're more so kind of like fingers crossed that some of the like smaller or like maybe like a PB or something events kind of really make a push in terms of like innovation, or maybe like make some changes that set them to that higher standard and potentially make them compete for like a larger event consideration, you know, maybe some higher like popularity or whatever, right, along those lines.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, no, that makes sense. That's good. Okay, cool.
If I were to rank them, I'd say I don't know how to rank them because I feel like they all do different things. I think if I were to rank competitive events, PB would be the first, but I feel like that's everyone's answer for competitive events.
I think in terms of ranking, I was more thinking like, in terms of what you're looking forward to the most, how would you rank them? So it's within their own respects. You don't have to like rank the events in terms of like, this is the best, this is the worst.
I feel like
we don't need
that
that.
Is just like, I feel like that like listing and ranking is so like kind of obvious because it's just it just comes down to like right now it's just the popularity of the event.
Yeah, of course, best event, MCC.
What? Best event, MCC. Second best event, Block Wars.
Wow, no way.
Like, that's a 90% shared opinion.
Yeah.
So. Yep. It's like not really something that I would like go on a tangent about. Where it's like people already know, but
so I think
people are gonna like events for different reasons.
Yeah, I think so. To make the ranking easier, I think the main ones to be talked about, and you can disagree if you want, would be MCC, Block Wars, PB, Buy and Battle, Mayhem. And if you want to throw Mania in there, you can. But I think it's easy to just have 5.
I think Mania are doing some changes, so I'm not sure what they'll fit when they come back. We'll have to see.
Okay.
So I think the big 5 are PB, Mayhem, Buy and Battle, Block Wars, MCC. Those are the main 5.
And then
for right now.
Is that so? That's how you rank them?
No,
okay.
Just kind of as a cumulative, as just a top 5 in any order.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay, I'm just super curious. So.
Yeah.
Would you say, you could also do it from top to bottom, or from bottom to top, or don't if you don't want to, of course.
I mean, in terms of the most fun I've ever had in an event right now, I would say Block Wars because I've played it enough to have a good opinion on it. I've played it 4 times, so I have like a solid enough opinion on it where it's like, yeah, I've played it twice where it's been a very competitive event, and I've played it twice where it's been a very much more laid back for fun event. So I actually have both like scopes because Block Wars 2 and 8 were more competitive, at least in my opinion. And then Chaos and Rookies were very just silly, goofy / for fun. So I kind of have both sides of Block Wars' development in terms of how I've played it. Same goes for Buy and Battle. I played it when it started out, when it wasn't the best, and then I played it recently where it was like much better. So I have that kind of experience from both sides. But yeah, I think Block Wars to me has been the most fun so far. I think it's just because it was the most like polished out of the events I've played. And I also like events where there is competitiveness, but it doesn't completely take over. That's why I like an MCC like kind of comp based roster is like always nice because it's like there's always gonna be people who are gonna feel competitive about it and like look at the stats and whatnot. But it's not like every single player is like a Lifesteal member, a HBG member who's going to try hard. You know what I mean? Like a PB. It's very much mixed in the middle. So,
true.
Like a Chaos roster is always going to be funny, goofy to me.
Right. So, to conclude the question, from 1 to 5 in terms of the major 5 events, rank them from like what you're most looking forward to for 2025, like what you have the highest hopes for, whatever, right? So whatever you are just most excited about, and it could be as a viewer and player, or just player.
Number 1 would be Buy and Battle because it's so new and it has so much like opportunities to do what it wants. 2 would probably be, I guess I'd have to say, from what I like think, might have to go with Block Wars.
Okay.
Purely just because I've had, I've like I've said, I've had experiences from both sides of Block Wars. I kind of, I know what to expect in terms of like what they could like, do if they were to work on something, like what they would work on. Like I've seen like feedback and stuff. I know what's up. 3rd would probably be a tie between PB / Mayhem. I think Mayhem is in the position where the one thing I'm hoping for is change. The one thing I hope is that there's new stuff. Right. If they have new stuff, be happy.
Yep, I agree.
PB is
what's it called?
PB is like in a situation. It's kind of similar to Block Wars, where it's like I've seen the feedback. I know what they're probably potentially going to work on. Slash, people's concerns have been looking at. Fingers crossed. Yeah. So, I kind of have a similar energy to them as I do with Block Wars, but kind of in a weirder sense because obviously PB leans so much to a competitive format where it's kind of trickier to get things right. With people in the event community, especially since people in the event community are naturally more critical than the casual audience, which Block Wars is reaching out to more, and PB is reaching out to a competitive audience more, so they're more likely to face more critical, critical and like I guess pessimistic critique and feedback. So it just kind of like makes me unsure what the community is going to think about changes that they make. But so that's why I think it's like slightly lower than Block Wars in my ranking. But like it's not far off, I don't think. And then MCC is like 4th/5th because MCC have already done everything. So it's like they could surprise me, sure. They could really surprise me. I'm always open to them to surprise me, and like it's not a bad event by any means. It's an excellent event. I just think because of how long they've been doing it for, it's so hard to know what they're gonna do next. So
I agree. The reason I asked that question in that way is because I knew you would get a unique ranking, right?
Yeah.
In no other context, unless you're doing opposite day, in terms of ranking the events, are you gonna see MCC at the bottom and like fairly at the bottom? Because I agree for the most. Well, okay, I would put Mayhem last because I'm not as attached to Mayhem. But
no, that makes complete sense. Yeah. I think like it just depends on what position you're in. Like
I understand your ranking, and I agree from your perspective that that's valid. So that's why I'm like, this is an interesting way to maybe look at the ranking events and it be like fair and make sense, and also just unique.
Absolutely.
All right, well,
100%.
That was the last question. The questions I skipped, by the way, are what game mode you're looking most forward to. We already kind of had the answer for that.
Race game. There we go.
Exactly. Least looking forward to probably PvP or something like that.
PvP, Skywars games.
And then
don't like those.
One that I just didn't really know what you would even say for this, which is a game mode that doesn't exist or barely exists.
Change pure parkour games into a type of game that's more team-based aspect, which means the bottom frags have more of an impact in the game and don't feel like they're just dragging the entire team down. That is my answer.
Fair. I agree. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, there you go. That's the whatever this is called, Minecraft event. Well, it's supposed to be an interview, but considering it's an hour and 36 minutes, that might be a podcast.
So, literally a podcast.
It's Minecraft event podcast, I guess, featuring Sandwich Lord. Any closing words you have for the Mogul Mailers?
I love Wolfie Mogul Mail.
Okay.
I'm also gonna be very okay. Actually, no, I'll say this. I'm gonna change my outlook of Minecraft events this year. I'm gonna stop caring about like placing high in terms of it hurts my mental. I'm gonna focus more on having fun because I've experienced how stressful it is to super ultra sweat a Minecraft event, and I want to go into it where it's like, sure, I want to still try, I want to win, but I don't want to care as much. I want to like kind of content farm a bit more because I've experienced every event, and I want to experience them in different ways.
Fair enough. Right, and then anything you'd like to plug? You can plug something.
I stream every day on Twitch.
Twitch.tv/SandwichLord.
Islands, and I play at Minecraft events. Maybe I'll play MCC again. Maybe I'll play Block Wars again.
Probably a link in the description, if I remember, to put the Sandwich Lord Twitch in there. So
Sandwich Lord VODs, we're trying to get us to 1K. Okay,
you're gonna get like 3 followers from the people who stick around this long, who don't know you already. Right. Well, that was it, and thank you, Savage Lord. I'm gonna end the recording soon.
No problem.
So say goodbye and bye.
Bye.